Great are you, Lord, most holy Lord.
That's great. Just great. Hey, we're in Matthew chapter 10, and if you've ever heard somebody say, I bit off more than I can chew, I may have done that today, so stick with me. We're going to travel quickly through this. A lot of ground to cover. Jesus has been speaking to his 12. He's about to send them out on this limited mission to these Jewish cities, and he's been instructing them, and he has more to say. We're going to pick it up in some ways in the middle if you were with us last week. But chapter 10 of Matthew, starting in verse 21. Brother will betray brother to death, and a father his child. Children will rebel against their parents and put them to death, have them put to death. You will be hated by everyone because of me, but the one who stands firm till the end will be saved. When you are persecuted in one place, flee to another. Truly I tell you, you will not finish going through the towns of Israel before the Son of Man comes. The student is not above the teacher, nor a servant above his master. It's enough for students to be like their teachers and servants like their masters. And if the head of the house has been called Beelzebul, how much more the members of his household? If you think Jesus came to bring unity and peace to all, you would be wrong. Not that he didn't, not that that's untrue, but there's more to the story. And there's coming division that comes with his coming. And he says it clearly, brother against brother, children against parents. And he'll say more before the chapter's finished. Betrayal, rebellion, persecution. It comes from not just governments, not bigwigs and organized religion. It's powerfully seen in the family too. It would even come from those you know and love. Jesus knows and says how the division among families will come, and it's going to be sad. It's happened back then. It's happened these days. Whether you know it or not, it's still true. Families can be brought together by faith, and families can be ripped apart by faith, and we'll say more about that later. You won't finish getting through the towns I send you to before I catch up to you, he says in verse 23, or some have interpreted it to be speaking of the coming Spirit or the second coming of Christ. You do your own research, you can decide, but instead of pushing them to stick around and get what's coming to them or face the persecution or become martyrs, he said, no, you can move on, flee the persecution, move on, don't stick there. And he says to the 12, oh, they are going to hate you. In some ways, this hyperbole, they're all going to hate you because of me. But you endure and I will save you. It will be bad, but I'll take care of you. You won't get the job done, but you be faithful. I've got you in this. If it happened to me, it's going to happen to you. If they despised me, the teacher, they'll despise you, the student. If they label me Beelzebul, the prince of demons, the lord of the flies, it's coming to you too. Wiersbe says they didn't outrank their master, so if he was hated, they will surely be hated. And this is where, for all of the feel-good preachers I sometimes see on TV, maybe you've seen them, where they preach about discipleship that looks something like beautiful rainbows and unicorns and bulging bank accounts and only good, only good. I just wonder if they've read Matthew 10, and I know he's speaking to his apostles, but I wonder what they're hearing. Because this doesn't sound like a health and wealth gospel to me. Jesus has more to say, verse 26. So do not be afraid of them, for there is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. What I tell you in the dark, speak in the daylight. What is whispered in your ear, proclaim from the roofs. Do not be afraid of those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul. Rather, be afraid of the one who can destroy both body and soul in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground outside of your Father's care. And even the very hairs of your head are all numbered. So don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. Whoever acknowledges me before others, I will also acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But whoever disowns me before others, I will disown before my Father in heaven. The reason I know he's not trying to scare his own followers here is because he speaks now of the Father who cares. So he's not using this against them like, he's going to get you. Not fearing him, just understanding who he is. For those that he has created, made in his own image, God cares deeply. Therefore, he speaks about the hairs on your noggin. the birds who take flight and land in the field or maybe fall and die. Do you know how many birds just on our acreage today will land? Do you know how many maybe overnight died? I don't have any idea, and this is one field. Do you know how many hairs you have on your head? I don't know that. David Minton says there are about 100,000 hairs on the human head. Did you know that? And have you counted yours recently? Mine are not as many as they used to be as the hairline moves up and gets a little thinner back here. Things are changing. I got hair growing in places I didn't know should grow. But this isn't about hairs and birds. His point is there is a God who cares. He knows. And if He knows the number of hairs on your head, if He knows the birds that land or die, He knows you. How much more then will He care for you? By the way, did you notice in verse 32, we act according to what Jesus does for us, and He acts in turn according to what we do in His name or for Him, or on the reverse of that, if we're not even proud. He is as proud of us as we are of Him. We acknowledge Him, He acknowledges us. We confess Him, He confesses us. But notice, we disown Him, He acts like He doesn't know either. Back to the theme, though, because this theme is still division. Many in our world today speak of peace and unity and sweetness with Christianity. Jesus clarifies which some do not want to recognize. I think if I took a microphone and a camera out to most anybody on any given road, from any church, any so-called Christian, and I said, somebody even who knows the Bible but doesn't go to church, I said, hey, did Jesus come to bring peace to this earth or a sword? Did He plan to unite people in a family or divide them? I think I know what people would say. They would speak of peace and unity because God wants to bring all of us together. I know. But I wonder if they know this. I wonder if they have read this, because this doesn't sound like the Jesus some people believe in. Listen to this, starting in verse 34. Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace on the earth. By the way, He's not saying that statement's not true. He's saying there's more to this. No, I did not come to bring peace in some ways only, but a sword. For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. Anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not even worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not even worthy of me. Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not even worthy of me. And whoever finds the life will lose it. Whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. I wonder how many people know that's even in the Bible. A radical, huh? A card says it's a wake-up call for those that haven't really realized the extreme radical nature of Jesus' coming. Do you know what He came to do? Do you know what happened because He came? Do you know what this means for some folks and their families? Jesus quotes from Micah to explain Himself, bringing all this to a crescendo to His disciples who are going to experience some of these things. He knows what lies ahead for them. He knows what lies ahead for Him. Robertson suggests it's no namby-pamby sentimentalism that Christ preaches. No peace at any price. The cross is Christ's answer to the devil's offer of compromise in world dominion. And then he goes on to say, family ties cannot stand in the way of loyalty to Christ and righteous living. I know I'm speaking to the choir in some ways, as people say. But do you know the calling of Christ is of supreme importance in your life? Do you know no other love in your world must supersede the love you have for Him? Do you know no other relationships that should supplant the relationship you have with Him? It is the greatest and must remain the greatest. Some know how much it costs to follow Jesus. Some of us others may not know quite yet, and I wonder what happens in our future. I don't know. But I know there's some folks who have dealt with this. The same thing Jesus says, like Afshin Ziafat. His experience was written in an article. I got to read it this week. I'll tell you some of the highlights. Born in Houston, Grew up in a Muslim family, surrounded by his tight Muslim community. His father moved them from there in Houston to Iran when he was 2, back to Houston at age 6. He now doesn't speak any English, so they bring in a woman to help teach him by reading these English books, and he reads those and learns to speak English. By 2nd grade, though, he remembers the day that she handed him a New Testament and said to him, "I want to give you the most important book that you'll ever read in life." So he's impacted by this Christian lady, and obviously she loves him enough to say that to him. He never quite got around to reading that New Testament, throws it on the floor, gets covered up by other things in life. But now he gets to high school, and he remembers playing basketball with some guys out on the court, and he does what a lot of guys do in frustration. He uses the Lord's name in vain, which isn't a big deal to him, until a Christian guy on the floor that day challenges him, speaking about my God, you speaking about my God. Another Christian guy in a lunchroom that day speaks to him about Jesus, and they start carrying on a conversation, almost like a friendly debate, a Muslim and a Christian. But he challenges him so much, he goes home and finds that in a closet, I think, buried under some stuff, the New Testament. He finds it and he starts reading it. First time in 10 years. And he reads it and reads it and reads it. He starts reading it at night underneath his covers in his bed so his parents don't find out. And he gets to Romans 3, if you know Romans 3, and he is struck, he is floored, he is overwhelmed by this thought that righteousness comes from God and is given, is offered to all, he says, who believe. All, even Muslims, he thinks. There's a guy that invites him to an evangelistic event. He calls it a crusade. He said, you know what we think about crusades? But he hears it. He goes and he hears it. He says the gospel was proclaimed for the first time publicly, and he starts wrestling with it. He starts coming to faith in Jesus. At some point, though, his father finds out the secret, finds his Bible, and he says, "What's going on?" He says, "Dad, I'm a Christian." Whether he understands all about that or not, his dad said, No, you're not, young man. You're a Muslim, and you'll always be a Muslim. He disagrees with his father. He reinforces the truth. He's now trying to live for Jesus. And his father says, "Son, if you're going to be a Christian, then you can no longer be my son." And he said in his brain, he's thinking for a moment, "I love my dad. Maybe I shouldn't go this direction." He doesn't want to wreck his relationship with his father. But then he says he almost has trouble understanding the words coming out of his own mouth. He says, "Dad, if I have to choose between you and Jesus, I choose Jesus. And if I have to choose between my earthly father and my heavenly father, I choose my heavenly father." And then he writes, "My father disowned me on the spot." He goes upstairs. He tries to ponder what just happened. Can't even believe it. Saying to God, "How could you let this happen to me?" Goes upstairs to his room and he says, I'm led to this Matthew chapter 10. And he writes, this section that we're reading, he says, "That's when I first understood what it means to be a follower of Christ." I wonder if I took a poll in this room. How many of you have given up great things for Jesus? I wonder if anybody would say anything great that they have sacrificed for the Lord. How many relationships have you seen dissolve because you said, "I will follow Jesus"? Or has our lives been just a minor inconvenience of having to wake up on a Sunday and show up here? Our love for the Lord must dwarf our love for family, even our own lives. A high calling, some say. Impossible to keep, some say. No, it's not. And whatever the Lord asks of us, whatever would be done to us, whatever we have to say goodbye to, it will be more than an honor, not a duty. By the way, several authors point out what you might have noticed. We're reading through Matthew, finally in chapter 10, and here at the end is the first time Matthew uses the word cross. It's because Jesus waits till now in Matthew's gospel to speak of the cross. And interestingly enough, he's not speaking of his cross, Jesus's, but his disciples. You must take up your cross. There'll be a lot more cross talk later, but for now, their calling is made clear. You will sacrifice, and he uses this language, "Whoever finds a life will lose it. Whoever loses their life for my sake will find it." Card writes, paradoxically, this is the only way to find true life, according to Jesus. Embracing the foolishness of the cross to be wise, letting go of possessions to become wealthy, becoming slaves in order to be free. It's a radical reversal, an upside-down nature of the kingdom and the source of our new identity in Him. Hey, listen, if you spend your days trying to wrap your arms around everything that you hold dear, and you wrap them around and you say, I love all of this stuff, and I love all of these people, and you hold your family tight and you try to hang on to everything and everyone you love, it won't work. Someday you will find maybe that you couldn't hold on to any of it really. It's an exercise in futility. You try to grab it and hold on to it, everything you love, and it will become like sand through your fingers. You'll look down one day and it'll all be gone. But if you spend your days relinquishing your life to Jesus, letting the Lord take it, give it to Him, sacrifice it all and say, it's all yours, you will wake up one day and discover He has preserved every part of it, your own life. He will take care of what is most valuable to you. He will protect you, and you will enjoy life forever. I probably told you this story too often, but some of you maybe knew enough that you didn't hear it. I won't give you all the details of his life. Jim Elliot impacted me even though he's been dead many years. He was killed along with his companions on a January day in the jungles of Ecuador, 1956. By the same people he and his buddies went to save through preaching the gospel of Jesus to them. And they killed him. One of the pictures in his book, a book written about him by his wife, has a man with a spear in his leg floating down the river. Could I tell you, though, without the whole story, what he said? Because maybe you've heard it. Even if you haven't, let it sink in today. Jim Elliot, long dead, for the gospel said, he is no fool who gives up what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. He is no fool who gives up what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. Let's finish the chapter and be done. Anyone who welcomes you welcomes me, Jesus says, and anyone who welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. Whoever welcomes a prophet is a prophet, or in that name will receive a prophet's reward. And whoever welcomes a righteous person as a righteous person, in that name will receive a righteous person's reward. And if anyone gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones who is my disciple, truly I tell you, that person will certainly not lose their reward. I said it last week, I'll say it again. Not all in the kingdom will become great preachers or elders or Bible school teachers. Not all will leave everything behind and travel across the oceans to get to another people in another country to tell them about Jesus. Some folks have sacrificed hugely, handsomely for the Lord. But even those who bless others will be rewarded. Even those who give even a cup of cold water in the Lord's name for those who are serving the Lord will be rewarded handsomely. There is value and significance in the smallest gift if given in the name of the Lord. It's not so much the cost, the value of the gift itself is any great thing, but the giver of it, the gift really that is given in a good motive, and the Lord who blesses all of those gifts that are given in that way. That's where the value is. Maybe you say a cup of cold water, who cares about that? 1965, there was a statue that was erected in Fredericksburg in Virginia, and it was to commemorate something happened over 100 years before that in the Civil War. Not so much about the battle itself that happened in that open field there, but during the battle, what happened outside of the battle in some ways. It's what they said about Richard Rowland Kirkland. That's who it's for. The inscription under the statue says, at the risk of his life, this American soldier of sublime compassion brought water to his wounded foes at Fredericksburg. The fighting men on both sides of the line called him the Angel of Mary's Heights. So it was during this December day, 1862, the Virginian battlefield starts filling up with casualties as the Union Army keeps trying to punch through near this area where there's a rock wall, and they're not getting any farther. They're not advancing because the Confederates keep beating them back. Soldiers on both sides are hearing now the groans, the cries of the men in the middle who haven't died, but they can't be whisked off the field, so they're just laying there into the sun, and they're crying for water, water. This Confederate soldier, Kirkland, approaches his superior officer and says, I'd like to give him some water, and they think he's crazy and he shouldn't do it, but he decides to do it, and he takes water out, and some say for an hour and a half, and some say even the shots have stopped as he brings water, not just to his friends, but to his foes also. God blesses those who show compassion. God blesses those who bless others, no matter who they are or what side they're on. And He especially loves to bless those who are His messengers, who are sent out in the name of the Lord. Maybe you'll never be on a battlefield giving cold water to the dying. Maybe you'll never give a cup of cold water to a bona fide prophet of God. But I figure you'll have plenty of opportunities to give the smallest of blessings, the tiniest of graces, any number of simple things to those who serve the Lord and serve Him well. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I can't count the number of times I've been blessed by some of you in this room. You have been ministers to this minister and good to my family, and I'm grateful for you. Thank you who have shepherded the shepherds, served the servants, loved on the teachers who are loving on the children, and encouraged the encouragers who sometimes get discouraged working in kingdom work. Every small act is an act of grace. It can be. Even a cup of cold water can be ministry. Even a kind gesture, a simple thing really, can reap blessings for the giver, eternal rewards from the Father if done in the name of the Lord. So keep following the Lord this week. Even if you make sacrifices, remember He gives life to those who give up their lives for His sake. He saves those who persevere to the end. He blesses those who bless others, especially His blessings. We have been given cups of cold water, containers of grace, not just full but overflowing. So my encouragement to you as we're done, go. Bless those who need the refreshment. Be good to all, and especially to those who serve in the name of the Lord. Let's stand and sing.